Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 150 of Rush Roundtable. I guess you could say, handpicked these five gentlemen mainly because they all wear glasses, like me. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey.
Um, uh, no, so yeah, just shout out to you five. You're all page admins for Rush fans, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, and over the past 50 episodes, which would be just about a calendar year. You've all been wonderful contributors to the team. So I definitely wanted all five of you on this episode with myself, an episode that I've been looking forward to since we started Rush Roundtable, way back 2.5 years ago. Top 5 album openers. This is something that some people have suggested as well. So should be a really fun one. How this is going to work. Just briefly introduce the cast. Got Eric, myself, Ryan, Ryder, Jim, Todd, and Ralph. You could say the analog kids on the top and the digital men on the bottom. So how this is going to work is this is not going to be round robin like we usually do. We usually go Eric, name your fifth, Ryan, name your fifth, Ryder, name your fifth. Not going to do it like that. Eric's going to go first. Eric's going to read his top 5 from 5 to 1. But before he does that, he's going to explain what he thinks makes a good opener. And we're all going to do that, right? So what we think makes a good opener, and then we're going to apply that criteria to our 5 choices. And then there may be brief discussion afterwards. So I think we'll just get right into it. So Eric, go ahead.
All right, what's crack-a-lackin', everybody? I'm excited to get us started. I'll give you my reasons and my top 5. I don't know why you're having me go first, because if I'm going first, it's gonna be all downhill after me. But without further ado, I really only have 2 criteria that I would use to select my top 5. The first one was that it sets the tone for the album. Both sort of sonically, does it sound like how the album sounds? Because there's a lot of variation from album to album. And then thematically, if there's an overall theme to the album, does it match the theme? So that's the 2 things I looked for. And when I did that, it turned out that a lot of the Rush album openers met those criteria. So then it kind of turned into which ones do I like the most? So sort of all 3. So starting with number 5, this might be a surprise to everybody out there. My number 5 is Test for Echo.
Continue. Explain.
Test for Echo.
I need to hear this one.
So I think Test for Echo, I think, is the highlight of the album. I think it's the best song there. I think it sonically sets it apart from Counterparts, because I think Counterparts, it's heavy, but it's got sort of a clean sound to it. Whereas Test for Echo, I think it's a little bit dirtier, a little bit grittier in terms of what the overdrive sounds like. And I think Test for Echo does a good job of setting that up. It's got good intensity of how it builds from the halftime to the, I guess, 3/4 time and then full time. And you got the double bass drums going at it for the choruses of the song. So I think it sets up the album really well. If you've listened to me before, you know how I feel about the rest of it. So, but it sets it up really well, nonetheless. Number 4, yeah, for sure. And any comments other than looks of shock? All right.
I almost chose it. It was a runner-up for me.
It's a good song. Number 4, I have Tom Sawyer. I felt like this list wasn't complete without Tom Sawyer, with the big synth intro and the pounding drums and the constant 16th note hi-hat. It had to be on this list. It's Rush's most iconic song, and off their most iconic album, it had to be on here. Number 3, I have The Spirit of Radio. Sort of the same reason. It's a high energy song. It's both a great album opener and a great concert opener. I know they opened concerts several times with The Spirit of Radio, and it sort of shows the new direction of the band at the time. They had Caress of Steel, 2112, A Farewell to King's Hemispheres leading up to it, which have sidelong epics on just about each of those. And then the album opener for Permanent Waves is The Spirit of Radio. It's a more pop sounding song, and it shows the direction that Permanent Waves and Moving Pictures and so on would take. So that's why I chose Spirit of Radio at number 3. At number 2, I have One Little Victory. And the reason I chose this one is because given the situation with the band at the time, especially with Neil, where people didn't know if Rush was retired. They didn't know if Neil would ever play drums again. And then they produce this album, they make this album, and the first thing you hear is Neil's onslaught of whatever he can hit. Just a great way to start a new album. Again, another high energy song that leads off into a fantastic album. And again, it sets the tone sonically for the album because it's heavy, it's dirty, it's fast paced, and I feel like most of Vapor Trails is that way. And then number 1, for the best album opener, I have Subdivisions. And the reason for that is sort of the same reasons I've been saying over and over again. It starts by setting the tone for what Signals is going to be. It starts with just synths alone, and that's what Rush was doing at the time. Is they were shifting away from just guitar, bass, drums into throwing some synths into the mix and giving them more of a pronounced role. And so you get that synth intro to be start off the song, and then that prolonged minute or so instrumental before the verse starts, and just a great song. Again, high energy. They started a number of concerts with this song, which sort of demonstrates this is a great way to start something off. And similar to One Little Victory, it shows we're doing synths now. So that's my top 5. The most superior top 5, of course, goes first. Happy to hear your thoughts.
I think
Thanks
we
for
were
giving
all
Test for Echo a little bit of
little
credit,
bit,
buddy.
a little bit floored with the test for echo, but yes, I agree with Ryder. Thanks for giving us some credit. Great tune, great album.
Yeah,
I have to throw it a bone every now and then.
there you go. I'm sure all that praise is gonna go away on the next episode of Rye Guys.
Probably.
So.
Cool.
Cool.
All right. Well,
Cool list, man.
So the reason you guys can hear me, right? Okay. My box wasn't lighting up. All right. So, the reason I put, the analog kids in the top row and the digital men on the bottom row was to see if there was any similarities or patterns or like choices based on age, right? Just mainly because of the way we consume our music now versus then. And I echo a lot of what Eric said. So I was wondering if this was going to happen. You basically used a lot of the words and the phrases that I literally wrote down. Songs that set a tone of the album and display what's to come. Songs that fit thematically. Now I put songs that fit thematically at number 1. Like they have to fit thematically as the first song. The one thing that I would add, or the third thing that I'm going to add to my criteria, is they cannot fit anywhere else on the record. Like they just wouldn't fit if you move them from spot number 1. They wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't feel proper if they were in some other spot. So my number 5 is Distant Early Warning from Grace Under Pressure. I toyed around with a couple different songs at number 5 here, but I thought of Distant Early Warning today, and I'm like, how come I didn't think of that, a week or two ago when I first started putting together my list. So thematically, it fits kind of with the Cold War theme that they're going with Grace Under Pressure. It's got a great intro, synth era. It fits tone wise with that record. And quite frankly, I just don't see that second, fourth, fifth, last. I don't see it anywhere else on that record. There's only 8 songs, but it fits perfectly at top of Grace Under Pressure. Now I only have 2 of the same choices as Eric, so that there is a difference there. My number 4 is A Farewell to Kings, the title track, of course, from A Farewell to Kings. I think the acoustic opening, right after 2112, you got this, and I guess Something for Nothing, right? You've got this super heavy record mostly heavy record in 2112. This kind of shows a little bit of a new direction as to where they were going. But acoustic opening really sets the tone. And I think thematically it fits best first. Again, it really couldn't fit anywhere else on the record, in my opinion. Number 3, One Little Victory. As many of you know, I'm not really a huge fan of this song. I don't really like this song that much. In fact, it's probably in the bottom 2 or 3 of Vapor Trail songs. That doesn't mean that objectively I don't think that it's a wonderful opener. I think there are definitely emotions tied to this song because, like what Eric said, this is the song that opened the corresponding tour after, I think it was, right? Yeah, the corresponding tour after, Neil's wife and daughter passed. So there's obviously emotions tied to it. I think that certainly elevates how good people think the song is, but I think it's definitely a wonderful opener. It shows that Rush is back. It sounds heavy and muddy like the rest of the record does. Probably not intentionally, but just shows the direction Vapor Trails is going to take. And I mean, what this song kind of is about, it's victory. It's Rush's back. It's like, I couldn't envision this anywhere else on the record. Plus, of course, it has the number 1 in the title. So it kind of had to go first. Similar to what they did with Seven Cities of Gold. I digress. Number 2 is The Spirit of Radio from Permanent Waves. This checks a lot of the boxes for what I think makes a good opener. Sets the tone, displays what is to come. Exactly what Eric said, shows Rush's new direction, and this couldn't fit anywhere else. This is an opening song. Begin the day with a friendly voice, right? Let's begin the day with a freaking awesome song that really shows the direction that we're about to take. And I nothing else on this record could fit first. This song has to be first, and it makes a wonderful opener. And I think Eric also said that it makes a wonderful concert opener. Now, number 1, I think this will actually come of surprise. It is not Subdivisions. I kind of threw this shirt on to trick everyone. My number 1 is Caravan from Clockwork Angels. Now, this checks literally all the boxes, and that's why I think it's objectively the best album opener. Sets the tone of the record of what's to come on Clockwork Angels. Displays kind of what's to come sound-wise. It's heavy. It's a banger of an opener too. And then both thematically and storytelling wise, it literally can't fit. This song literally cannot go anywhere else on the record, right? I mean, so not only just thematically, but again, just musically, and it's just a wonderful track, and it's that record top to bottom. Obviously, the Swan Song, they really couldn't have done it any better, as that being their last record. But I truly think Caravan is the best album opener. So I would love for you guys to tell me why you think that opinion sucks. So go ahead.
I think that's a great opinion. Like with I mean, obviously, it comes in the order of the story, but
Right.
yeah, especially with like the jingling bells and the just at the start of it, and just that whole how it spends a lot of time like setting like an actual like picture of an environment with like just the noise and stuff. There's a lot of places on Clockwork Angels that does that too. Like Carney's is a great example of that. And I think it's just a great idea of like just the themes of it, not only with the story, but like musically.
I mean, now I'm sure folks are going to say, oh, well, why did Ryan leave off Tom Sawyer, right? Or whatever. I mean, that checks a lot of the boxes, but I think that song could have been placed elsewhere. That album could have opened with Limelight. It could have opened with Red Barchetta, maybe even YYZ. But I think there's so many good songs on that record, and there's so many songs that could have opened that record that it wasn't necessarily a need on my list, and I thought the other ones fit better. So,
Mhm.
That was a
all
good
right,
list. Just curious, did you mention Test for Echo?
I did not mention
All
Test
right,
for
I'm just
Echo.
gonna keep score for myself. So it's 1-0.
Okay.
1-0 right now.
Jeez. All right. Well,
Ryder, go
there
ahead.
we go. I mean, this is basically this is basically just episode of Rye Guys at this point. So before I get to my number 5, I what I see is a great album opener. Obviously, as we said before, sets the stage for the album thematically, musically, all that. But then just like overall listening experience of the song. Like after I listen to this song, like does it get me excited to listen to the rest of the album? And then also some of these I incorporated a little bit of like showing where Rush was really at, like as a band at that point. So a lot of these have, a little bit of historical significance with the band. So yeah, for my number 5, I have Anthem from Fly By Night. Um, Anthem is an incredible opener, not just for the album, but kind of for the band. Rush had the debut album, but this was the first album with Neil. This was the start of Rush. So, they needed to come out like really like, well, when I say, the start of Rush, like as we know them. And, they really needed to come out of the gate swinging. And I think they did that incredibly with Anthem, just that amazing intro that goes through all these different motions, and then it really shows like Neil's virtuosity like kind of right at the start. And there's a lot of themes on it, like musically wise. Alex's guitar tone, it stays pretty consistent throughout the record, so you're introduced to like the sounds of Rush, Geddy's Rick. And lyrically I think it's very strong, with a very strong opening message like to go into the album. Yeah, I think just overall like where it is like as kind of like the start of Rush, I think it's a great opener, like not only for the album, but for the band. The next is kind of the reintroduction of Rush, with number 4 with One Little Victory, kind of for the same reasons of, people, nobody knew if Rush was going to go on forward, not just fans, but, Rush themselves too. And, everybody's already said it, comes in incredibly with Neil's drums at the start, showing like, he's back. It's a lot of the focus of, Rush's apparent breakup or whatever that people were calling it was based on Neil. So showing that he was really here and really coming to bring it, not just, musically. He does incredible drumming all throughout the album, but some of his best lyrics too. And I think we start to see a little bit of that in One Little Victory. And, introducing the sound of the album, both, from the quality standpoint and like how it would come in musically throughout the record. I think this album has a very unique factor of heaviness to it, kind of like what Eric was saying with Test for Echo and Counterparts. Counterparts was heavy, but had a little bit more cleanness to it. Test for Echo had some grit to it, but Vapor Trails was kind of a unique form of heaviness. A lot of it was like reliant on like, there's an emotional aspect to it, and the instrumental is not afraid to get like absolutely like gut wrenching, like, and just like incredibly heavy bearing. But yeah, I have One Little Victory at number 4 for those reasons. Distant Early Warning I have at number 3. This is coming off after Signals, already some experimentation with synths, but now they're really going in with synths. A lot of points in the song since they're completely replacing like the bass, like in where it goes dun dun dun. That's the bass completely drops out, and that's something that happens a lot on the record. I think lyrically too, it does a great job of setting like the stage for like the desolate kind of future landscapes that we see with Grace Under Pressure. Especially like in not just like with a bleak idea of like the world around it, but like some relationship stuff, like with After Image, like dealing with the concept of death. I think Alex's guitar is great on this one. Still showing that, even with all the synthesizers, he's going real strong. And Neil, as always, killing it on the drums and lyrically, and it just does a great job of setting the stage for the album to come afterwards. Show Don't Tell, I can explain why I like this one with a little story that my dad told me. So it's 1989, Presto came out. This is after Power Windows and Hold Your Fire, where Rush went into synths and stuff. And you're a kid growing up with like a heavier Rush, and all of a sudden they go to synths, and it's like, what's going on here? So they bought it on cassette, they put it in, and they're sitting there. You hear the dun 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 da 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 da. They jumped, they screamed, "They're back! They're back!" I think this, just for the factor of that really heavy intro, showing that Rush was pulling back the synths. They're really going in hard for this album, and Presto in a lot of ways kind of was a return to form of that. Synths were still present, but they kind of pulled back a little bit and focused more on the 3-piece aspect. Once again, super tight instrumentation from all 3 of them. I can say that for every single one of these. But Presto does an amazing job of setting the stage for the album, but also like kind of bringing Rush back to like where they were before. And then at number 1, I have A Farewell to Kings from A Farewell to Kings. Coming off of 2112 is a pretty big task. That's completely changed everybody's concept of the band and what they could do. So they had a lot to prove with the album that could come after. Was this a one-stroke genius, or whatever? Can they keep doing this kind of stuff? Opening the album with that acoustic intro and slowly bringing in the rest of the band, and then just crashing in and bringing this incredible arrangement. Geddy is at like the top of his game when it comes to vocals. He does such a great job with delivering Neil's incredible lyrics for this song. And Alex, he is great on this, not only with the acoustic intro, but throughout the song. And the solo that comes after the choruses, he does not wank out on that at all. He does such an incredible job of just carrying it forward. And it's one of, I think A Farewell to Kings is one of Alex's best guitar albums. And I think he really proves that with this. But also, it shows that Rush can really carry the aspect of being like a prog band, because you got the massive side opener on 2112 and whatever, but it showed that they're still able to incorporate and innovate what they do with their music, changing up the feel halfway through the song, and once again the acoustic intro. But it does such a great job of showing like that the band has a lot like to them, and they still can move forward and create some of their best material. I mean, like, this set the stage perfectly for songs that would come later on the album, like Cinderella Man and my personal favorite epic, Cygnus X1 Book 1. And I just think that A Farewell to Kings is just a great emblem of the album and the band as a whole, that they're able to continue to innovate and try different things and just make incredible music. Yeah, that's my top 5. What do you guys think?
You didn't have any of what I'm just donning, the big 4: 2112, Spirit of Radio, Tom Sawyer, or Subdivisions, like the hits. I don't know, that probably most people would consider for this. You didn't have any of
Or
those.
Test for Echo.
or Test for
Or
Echo.
Test for Echo. Well, there is a I didn't want to preach to the choir, what everybody think is their number 1, Test for Echo.
Yeah, that's
so
fair.
I wanted to shake it up a little bit, and that's also part of why I didn't do the big 4. I was thinking about putting Spirit of Radio and Tom Sawyer on this list, but as I like really sat and listened through all the different album openers that there were, I started thinking of like reasons why these other songs like kind of push forward the rest of the album. And I think that some of these songs, they set the stage better than some of the other songs. Not saying that they're bad, but not every song on 2112 was a 20-minute epic. And just other things. I just thought that these songs had a lot of like unique qualities to them, and I wanted to highlight those.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned show don't tell. That
Mhm.
almost made my list for the exact reasons that you said.
That
it
high
was
up
on your
too,
list.
number 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredible opener.
All right, Jim, what do you got?
Okay, so my reasoning, like, or generally what I think makes a good album opener is probably pretty much the same as you guys. It's the perfect start of the album. It's gonna set the vibe, the mood, the tone of it, and it's something that's exciting to listen to and gets your attention, right? The first songs, can't be like, okay, yeah, that was a song, right? It's got to really get your attention and try to, grab you and make you want to hear more of that album. All right. So with that said, here's my list. Number 5, One Little Victory. This was, and I know you guys had that too, and you guys said it as well, but for us digital men down here, this was the album that we thought would probably not happen as we were sitting and waiting to see what would happen. And then it came out, and you're just hit with a wall of sound from those drums at the very beginning. And it's, just the whole, that's the we're back again from, being away, right? And just the whole vibe of that song just kind of sets the album to me. Number 4, I'm gonna have to give a little prop to Neil again. Anthem. So just like Ryder said, it's the introduction to like Rush as we know them, right? When everybody thinks of Rush, they think of Geddy, Alex, and Neil, right? So, Geddy and Alex came off of the first album, which was a little bit more of like, bluesy style rock stuff, which John Rutsey did a fantastic job playing on. I think I've said that 1,000 times. I love his playing. But when Fly By Night came out and you put on Anthem, it's like whoa, this is different. Where are they going with it? And it really sets the tone there. Number 3, Tom Sawyer. It is a great album opener, a great introduction to moving pictures, and just a song that's been a staple. Yes, it was a hit, but it's been a staple in their live performance as well. Number 2, A Farewell to Kings, the title track. Just, I don't know if I could really add to anything that you guys said. I like what Ryder mentioned about it, but I mean, it's got fantastic playing, great instrumentation, like great orchestration, great parts. It's an amazing song. Can't go wrong.
You didn't like what I said about it though?
No. Yeah, I did like what you said. I did. And number 1, which is, I think this is the coolest album opener and my favorite concert opener, The Spirit of Radio. It is just like, anytime I hear that, especially like the live versions of it, it's just like, goosebumps, right? That song definitely gets you excited. Rush was, getting into a little bit more of a shorter song form style with Permanent Waves, and Spirit of Radio kind of has like almost everything, right? I mean, fantastic playing, of course, right? They're flexing their chops on it for sure. And it was a radio hit, right? It's perfect. This is a perfect way to set up that album. And then the way that album traverses through the rest of it, I think it's a very good flow that it has. And I think Spirit of Radio is the perfect start to it. So Eric did have the best list until I read mine. So now Eric's is down to number 2, and my list is number 1.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Jim did put in our Zoom chat for those who obviously cannot see that. I'm going to add Test for Echo just for that right after Eric said it. So there you go.
And did he add Test for Echo?
He did not.
Oh, that's right. He didn't. So it's still 1 to
did not. I was going to say my number 5 through 1 was Test for Echo.
Just all.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, but yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
So Todd, before Todd goes, I will state that Todd, you were on with me, I believe, Iron Maiden openers. If you like Iron Maiden, you can go to Ryan's Vinyl Destination, put that in to YouTube. Todd and I did a similar style episode for Iron Maiden with this, and it looks like Todd might be foreshadowing his, at least one of his picks
Oh.
behind him there. So,
Well,
Maybe.
do you have Aces High? Do you have Aces High on your list? Is that why you're foreshadowing?
No, it might have been on my list on that show. I have always thought that a good opener should introduce whatever is new and different for the latest recording sessions, and it should do it right from the start. I think it should preview the new album with enthusiasm, and we'll come back to that word, and convey that the artist and the band is confident about the new material. It should be a snapshot of what is to come, and encourage the listener to keep listening. And I want to go back to the word enthusiasm, because if a band on their opening track doesn't sound like they're into what they're doing, you'll know, and you will be much less likely to continue. Or if you do, you might be sorry. But my number 5 is Show Don't Tell from Presto. I think that it introduces the new, slightly more stripped down sound of the band. It starts with a heavier, crunchier guitar sound, but it also, the lighter sounding, heavy on effects guitar sound from Hold Your Fire is still there also. It introduces a lighter, airier keyboard sound and more space in the mix to my ears, and which goes on throughout the album. And also bass solo, which I think is awesome at the end. But my number 4 is Tom Sawyer from Moving Pictures. It hits you with those bass pedals right away, and I think it showcases what is probably the pinnacle of the great Terry Brown mixes. The instrumental part in the middle showcases each player one at a time, as if to introduce them to somebody who might have never heard Rush before. And it's a very relatable lyric. If Tom Sawyer isn't you, then maybe he's like somebody you know. And so I think that's why so many people responded to that song so much, so positively. My number 3 is Distant Early Warning from Grace Under Pressure. The distorted synth bass pedal sounds at the beginning kind of set the tone for the album, which is much darker. 28 seconds in, when the band really kicks in, the synth chords are almost like guitar power chords, but they're synth. Relentless driving energy, the ominous lyrical content introduces the tone of the themes of some of the following tracks. It's almost as if Getty is saying, the world can be a dark place, and I don't understand it, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do about it. And that song kind of sets up the mood, and they kind of go into those themes later throughout the album. And it introduces, I didn't really research this to find out if this is the first time, but I feel like Distant Early Warning has at least a couple of guitar solos that start out as guitar solos, and then they have rhythm guitar elements within them. It's almost as if Alex is switching into a rhythm guitar arrangement and then going back into the guitar solo. And Distant Early Warning does that, and the next song does that. And and I think that's really cool. That's one of my favorite things about that album are Alex's guitar solos. My number 2 is The Big Money from Power Windows, and I'm almost surprised that nobody else picked it. It starts with that big Alex Lifeson guitar chord, and then it goes right into a wall of synths. It has sequence synths and electronic effects, sound effects show up, and then into a verse with a very prominent bass arrangement. And the song announces to the world that technology is going to be real important on this Rush album. And the instrumental break has some electronic percussion that is kind of reminiscent of the woodblock that Neil played on earlier albums, but done electronically. And it's almost as if, well, it's still Rush, but we're using some different sounds. And great guitar solo by Alex, of course. And my number 1, I suppose, somewhat predictably, is The Spirit of Radio from Permanent Waves. To me, the theme of this track has always been motion. The repeating guitar melody segues into a rhythmic section and then kicks into a groove. And then a melodic repeated tune percussion pattern kind of reinforces the motion theme. It's got in the place where you expect the guitar solo, it's really got a rhythm guitar arrangement And that leads into this crazy instrumental break, and then into a driving rock section, and then all of a sudden, slow and steady reggae. I can remember hearing that for the first time and being, how old was I? I don't know, 14 or 15, and just thinking, wow, I don't know what to expect. And I think that's kind of what this track does. I think that's what the spirit of radio does, is it tells people that they can start expecting the unexpected from Rush, and they can start expecting arrangements that change and go to places where you might not think they're going to go. And Test for Echo is not on my list, but it was an honorable mention. It almost made it.
There we go.
Honorable mention doesn't count for anything.
Doesn't.
Gotta make the list.
No.
Yeah. No, that's great. I love how you mentioned Show Don't Tell as well.
Mm.
And for anybody who's only heard the album version, the album was recorded a little thin. I've always thought, right? But Show Don't Tell in concert with a full onslaught of what it should sound like.
Yeah.
Whoa. Like actually not even like watching it on video, but actually being there, it was incredible. And that's, I think, for yeah, that was just amazing.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why.
First time the
Such
Big
a
Money
good
has
album.
been featured on a list here, so
This is true.
very well done, Todd. Ralph, you're gonna tell us why Bastille Day is the number one album opener, right?
That is incorrect. 4 of mine have been mentioned. One hasn't. My number 1 hasn't been mentioned yet, though. When we talked about this, immediately 3 songs popped in, and then it was a 15-way tie for the rest. And then there was Test for Echo. Driven should have been the number 1 opener. It should have been the opener for Test for Echo, in my opinion. So, number 5. Well, my criteria was pretty much what everybody said. I mean, you pretty much said everything. Sets the mood from the album, makes a statement, and then it just pulls you in right away. And that being said, Caravan, even though it doesn't pull you in right away, it's kind of a build up. That's my number 5. I love that song. Once it kicks in, it's just amazing, and just sets the tone for the whole album, for the whole story. Number 4 and number 3, kind of the same reason, and it's already been mentioned. Anthem is number 4. Here we are. It's Neil. It's a new band. They start out right away with crazy drumming, crazy guitar, Geddy screaming at rot, however he does that. I'm not gonna bother doing that. And
I
number
think you
3
should
is
bother doing that right now on this one. Yeah.
So yeah, number 3, One Little Victory. Like Jim mentioned, Rush was done. We didn't know if there was ever going to be Rush again. And when you heard that, just Neil pounding away, it was just amazing. I remember holding the CD and looking. It's just Geddy bass, Alex guitar, Neil drums. Like they just did away with all the keyboards, and it was just the 3 of them, and it was just amazing. So that was like a goosebump moment when I heard that. Number 2 is Big Money. Todd mentioned. Again, that's immediately you got the right away. You're in the power chords. They're like, I know people didn't like the synths, and we're doing this, whether you like it or not. This is our new sound. They embraced that technology and used it all. So then,
Time out.
You want to guess?
Yes, let's guess. Let's guess what Ralph's number 1 is. There's only so many because you said it hasn't been mentioned
Has
yet,
not
right?
been mentioned. No.
I haven't.
I'm gonna say I think it's Far Cry.
I think it's Dreamline.
Oh. I'm sticking with Far Cry.
But 2112 also has not been mentioned by anybody. So go ahead, Ralph.
I'm going to guess Summertime Blues.
Who's the guy in the white hat?
Some bum.
Some
Yeah.
bomb. All right, Ralph, what do you got?
Um, I 2112 was going to make my list, but that's just basically the whole album, I thought. So I didn't include that. Far Cry, I went with.
There we go.
Like when it goes, it's immediately, it sets the tone from the album. You got the, I don't know what you call it, the pulsing guitar, bass, and drums with the acoustic guitar underneath. Then the hemisphere chord kicks in, and that just song just doesn't stop until the end. So I love that song. Um, yeah, so I think I have three of mine were from the last three albums. I love the when I'm listening to
Wow.
Rush, is what I'm usually going towards. Right?
Wow. Yeah.
So, okay, I've been doing some statistics in my head as we do, and I, wrote everything down here. I don't know if Eric was doing the same thing or if he was doing his
I've got a
homework.
tally.
Okay. I there's I think this is accurate. There's 7 songs that have not been mentioned at all. Well, I mean, we may have mentioned them, but they weren't on anyone's list. Finding My Way, Bastille Day, 2112, Hemispheres, Force 10, Dreamline, and Animate
Hmm.
are this obviously excluding
Yeah.
Summertime Blues. So those were the 7 that did not make anyone's list. Before we go into the next thing I was about to say, did anybody consider any of those to make? Did any of those like maybe make
Yeah.
an appearance in your list, and then because
Yeah, for sure.
I had
But-
Animate as 5 until today when I put Just an Early Warning in. So
Yeah, I was
Been
thinking about
my
Animate
list.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would say though that the epics like 2112 and Hemispheres purposely did not make
Yeah,
a
same.
consideration on my list because they are it's not, to me, it's not an album opener, it's an epic,
It's a
right?
side.
It's
Yeah.
different, it's a whole side.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that it didn't fit my criteria, although I
There's
love them. And
4
Hemispheres is the best.
70s songs that didn't make it. Finding My Way, Bastille Day, 2112, and Hemispheres. So I don't know. Maybe they were just not. Well, I guess maybe this is kind of our collective opinion that they definitely progressed as songwriters and
Mhm.
and album record constructors, or however you want to say that, to where
Yeah.
Well, I don't
And
know
that's not
because
discrediting
Anthem,
any of those songs, but like
no, it
I feel
isn't.
like
No,
I mean,
completely
you know,
different,
with
right?
yeah, and to Jim's point with like, 2112 and Hemispheres, those are epics. You don't really like consider those
yeah,
like the
Sure.
big album openers in the same light that you would a song like Subdivisions or Far Cry.
right. And Anthem made more than one list. So, and that was
Yeah.
from their second album. So I don't think they just purely evolved. I mean, they did evolve, obviously, right? But
Mhm.
Anthem was thought by more than one of us to be a great opener.
Yeah.
Well, that's a
It-
nice little segue to the next. Oh, sorry, Todd. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that Bastille Day was my original number 5, and I cut it for Show Don't Tell. But I also considered Dreamline, Force 10, and Animate.
Yeah, I
So
thought
Okay.
about Force 10 and Anime too.
So
Yeah.
basically, literally, okay. Well, the 470 songs weren't considered by anybody, which is kind of what I was alluding to. But that's fine. No, that's not. I'm not. They're all. Eric said at the very beginning. I think it was Eric. Pretty much any of these songs could be considered for like by anybody, right? And a lot of it's subjective. There is some objectivity in it. But Eric, maybe you can back me up on this, but tally wise, I have One Little Victory showed up the most in all of our lists,
Yeah.
which is
so
interesting.
I had One Little Victory at 5. I think everybody but Todd.
Everybody but Todd. Yep.
Yeah, and then the Spirit of Radio was next. It had 4,
Or
and then the rest were just 3, 2, or 1. I am shocked that Subdivisions. I was the only one that mentioned Subdivisions.
A Farewell the
surprised
King
me a lot.
showed up in 3, which
Right.
is
Mhm.
quite a few. Big Money didn't show up until the last 2. Todd and Ralph. Far Cry only showed up once. Caravan showed up twice. Distant Early Warning showed up twice. Show Don't Tell showed up twice.
Twice, right?
I had distant early warning it 3 times. I think it was brought up 3 times.
You are correct. Yes. Yeah. Yep. Same.
How many times was Test for Echo mentioned?
Once.
Oh, that's right.
One too many.
One too many.
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, for me,
Come on.
It's a great song.
I don't know. It
Oh,
just
it's a great
it
song.
doesn't. It is a good album opener. It just, to me, it doesn't shine over any of the choices that I chose, or a handful of some of the other choices.
I was just afraid everybody was going to have Test for Echo at their number 1, so I wanted to shake things up.
I'm honestly surprised that The Spirit of Radio didn't show up in everyone's list. So Ralph and Ryder, what do you have to say for yourselves?
I mean, have you ever listened to Show Don't Tell, man? That's kind of cool. It's a pretty cool song.
It is. It's a great song.
I will say,
I was
I just wanted to say to Ralph, Far Cry. Obviously, I love Snakes and Arrows. I'm probably the biggest Snakes and Arrows advocate you'll find. To me, though, the only thing with that is it's obviously a banger of an opener, but it just, to me, it doesn't, which is why I'm shocked it's number 1 on your list. I could understand it being, maybe 5 or whatever, but it's almost, to me, it's the heaviest song on that record, and it only goes downhill from there in terms of heaviness, or uphill or down. You get the point. So to me, tone wise or sound wise, it just doesn't feel, it feels like an outlier, I guess, if that makes any sense, which is why I didn't make my list.
You can
Yeah,
say it's a
that's
far cry from the rest of the songs on the album.
right. Yeah, the only thing I think it has in common is all the layering of guitars and acoustic guitars. But I just love that song.
And a
Otherwise,
fantastic guitar solo. Wonderful guitar solo.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. I definitely think it's a shock that Subdivisions only showed up once in 6 of our lists.
Yeah.
Eric's
It's a
number
great.
1.
It's a great opener for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I was
mean,
listening to the All playlist today, and my list changed 18 times.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah.
All right. Well, we can wrap there. This was a lot of fun. Thank you to the 5 of you. You all had wonderful lists, wonderful explanations. Everyone came extremely prepared. I expected nothing less. So thank you. Those watching, please let us know what your top 5 album openers are, and what the criteria is for your list, because like Eric said right from the start, an argument could be made for every single one of these songs, and I'd love to hear it. And yes, tell us why you think Test for Echo is the best album opener, or just the best album in general.
Yeah, it's a great album.
Yes. So with that, we'll wrap up here. Next week, we are starting Hold Your Fire, song discussions as part of Rush Roundtable, with Force 10, obviously the opening track from that. And for those wondering, I'm sure there are some folks wondering, we will do top 5 closing tracks at some point. We will get there. It is on the list. This one just kind of seemed a little bit more special for 150. So there you go. Please like the video if click the like button if you like this. Leave a comment and subscribe to our channel. Share this out with your friends, all your Rush friends or whatever. And we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.